Hello again, and welcome to this webinar by Philanthropia about developing a project plan. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Eva. I'm the presenter today. I'm from Germany, and I have worked with NGOs and in the field of resource mobilization and fundraising for more than 10 years. I lived in Nepal and South America for a while, and now I'm based in Germany again. So I see you've already discovered the chat. We have the chat, so you can just interact with each other. You can say where you're from and interact there. If you have a question for me that you want me to answer in the end, you can use the Q&A box. So please just put your questions for me in the Q&A box. And if you want to talk to each other, if you want to just say where you're from, etc., you can use the chat, which I see you're already doing a lot. That's great. And I see people from Uganda, Micronesia. Oh, wow, that's new, I think. Kenya, from Azerbaijan, Malawi, Lebanon. Wow, this is really from all across the world. That's so great. Thank you all for joining. We will have time for questions in the end, so you can just put them in there and I will get back to them in the end. And I think for now, I will just get started with the presentation and we will go through today's topic. Okay, now I hope you can see the screen and everything is okay. Thanks again for joining. So again, today's topic is developing a project plan as a base for a successful proposal. And I think that is crucial because I proofread a lot of proposals. I get a lot of proposals on my desk. And what I often see is that the underlying project that the proposal is about is not thought through, and it's not catered to what a donor wants to see. So that is the reason why many proposals fail, because you can't write a great proposal if you don't have a great project. So today we're going to talk about how to develop a project plan that really works and that will then be able to convince your donor to fund you. So we will start by talking about what a project plan is. So just so that we're all on the same page. Why is it necessary? What you need it for? What are the most important parts of a project plan? Then what's the difference between a project plan and a proposal? Because we get that question a lot. And also, how does it help with your proposal? So how can you use it then? So starting, what is a project plan? A project plan is a comprehensive plan about what you want to do and how you want to do it. And it describes the project you're planning with as much detail as necessary. So it's basically the concept, the structure that you want to follow to implement a project. It describes exactly why you want to do something and how you want to do it. So it focuses on the action points, on the activities that you want to implement. It describes what you want to do. So it basically is your roadmap for the project, because to be able to, to plan or to implement a good project and to also write a good proposal later, you need to know what you want to do. No, you need to know what the steps would be, what the steps are that you want to take to achieve what you set out to achieve. Know what the logic behind that is. So that is what you need the project plan for. It gives you direction, it tells you what the steps are, and it tells you the logic of how your project is supposed to work and how things are going to fit together and sit on top of each other. Why do you need a project plan? Many people I talk to ask me, why should I'm going to write a proposal, so that's going to be the document we're working with. Why do you need a project plan? There's different reasons why you need a project plan. First of all, to convince your own NGO, maybe you want to lobby for some kind of project, you want to lobby for some new project, new approach that you want to implement, and that's why you need a project plan to convince your own NGO about the merits of this idea that you want to present. But then also, even before you write a proposal or you do anything else, a project plan will help you to plan for eventualities and challenges. So you need to understand the idea that you have there, and that's closely connected to the next point. It helps you to get organized. Oftentimes we have ideas. An idea to do something is not a project. A project is a plan that has all the details, that is organized, that has a logic behind it, that has an intervention logic, etc. And moving from that stage of having an idea, oh, I want to teach farmers in my village about pesticides because there's an issue. That's an idea. But then actually planning out, like, what is the specific issue that I want to address? Why is that an issue? How can I address it? What are the activities? How much money do I need for that, etc.? That is developing a plan. That's the next step. And that will really make you look at all the details of it, because oftentimes our ideas are not going to be easy to implement or even possible to implement, because maybe we plan wrong. Maybe we're planning for a project that's not possible. Maybe we want to do something that is not achievable. But when we sit down and write down everything, we will run into those challenges. We will realize, oh, this could be an issue. This is going to be difficult. Oh, we have to think about ways to overcome this issue or challenge. If this happens, then can we still implement a project, etc. So it makes us plan for all those challenges ahead, and that they will then later make it easier to actually overcome those challenges. It also helps you to get organized. Again, you need to specify the resources you need, the money you need, maybe also the people you need, the human resources you need, all the documents, etc. It helps you to become organized and to understand if that idea that you had is actually going to be a good project or not. And it forces you to gather all that information. Because again, if you just have an idea and you think, oh, we will buy computers for every child, but then you realize, oh, there's no electricity, stuff like that. That is information that you gather when you write the project plan. You need data, you need background, you need, kind of all this background information. And you're forced to collect all of that to write a project plan. We've seen many cases where NGOs have had an idea and didn't properly develop a project plan from it, just wrote a quick proposal, or sometimes had connections and didn't even have to write a full proposal, got funding, and then during the implementation realized, oh my God, this is not possible. We didn't realize that this was not possible at all. And that's a situation that you always want to avoid, because you never want to have to go back to a donor and say, oops, we promised you to do this and this and this, but actually now we realize that's not even possible. So you don't want to run into that situation. To avoid that, you have to gather all that information in this stage and really write a good project plan that is comprehensive and that covers all your bases. This is why you need it. And again, you can use it as a base for a proposal later, and we will talk exactly about that and how to do that later. But it is going to be helpful. So it's not double work. People sometimes say, well, if I write a proposal, why do I have write a project plan? It's just going to be twice the amount of work for the kind of the same document. You will see it's not the same document, and it's not double work, because a lot of the information, a lot of the stuff that you gather when you write the project plan, you can take and use again when you write the proposal. So then you have a great base to move forward and to write a proposal. You don't need a project plan to write a proposal, but it really helps. When we talk about writing a proposal, we keep telling you, okay, you have to adjust the proposal to the donor's needs. You have to look at what the donor wants to see, and that's what you have to put in there. Look at the guidelines and then follow the guidelines, etc. So you already see, or hear, this is all catered to the donor, but you still want to implement your own project. No, you don't want to implement the donor's project. So to be able to have a project and then maybe adjust it to what the donor wants to see, you first need to have a project. If you start by writing the proposal that is perfectly tailored to what the donor wants to see, you're just doing that. But if you start with a project plan as you want to do it, and then kind of look at it from different angles, if you present it to different donors, then that still stays your work and your project. And it's still 100% aligned with your theory of change. You're just looking at it from different angles. But if you start by writing the proposal with a specific donor in mind, you will probably kind of tailor it towards only that donor's needs. And that is maybe not 100% aligned with your theory of change anymore. That is maybe not 100% aligned with what you actually want to do. So writing a project plan first makes sure that that is your project, that is exactly what you wanted to do. And also makes sure that you don't fall into the trap of what is called mission creep, which is when you only write for donors and you kind of lose your own mission and your own ideas in the process. And you really want to avoid that. And again, it really helps because you will see when we talk about the parts of a project plan, you will see that you have to cover a very similar basis than in a proposal. So you already collect all that data, you already write all the snippets that you can then reuse and maybe adjust a bit. So you're doing a lot of the work already, but it's more specific to the project and not so specific to the donor. So again, what does a project plan cover? It's very simple, basically. It should tell you these basic things. Where do you want to do something? Which is very important. Location. Why do you want to do something? That is crucial for the project plan, but also for the donor later. So you should already work on this now, even though maybe for the internal audience, it's not that important. So the reasoning behind the project, why is the issue that you want to solve an issue? What is happening to the people if you're not working, if you're not implementing the project, all of that is covered there. And we will talk in detail on a method to develop that section, which is called the problem tree in a bit, which is very interesting. Then you describe what you want to do, obviously, the activities, what needs to be done, what are the specific strategies, approaches that you want to use, and what are the activities that you want to implement. Who wants to do it and who you're going to do it with. Both who's need to be covered here. So who are you? What do you bring to the table? And also who are you working with? Who are project participants? Who are the communities that you want to work with? So that needs to be covered as well. Then how? What are the approaches that you want to use? So are you going to work with awareness campaigns, or are you going to distribute stuff? Are you going to do training, or are you going to build something? So that's the strategy. Include a timeline, or at least a basic timeline, like how is the timing supposed to be? How when do you want to start? How long is each task going to take? And what are milestones along the way that you need to achieve by a certain point in time? And then also talk about the budget. How much money do you need for that? It doesn't have to be perfect yet, because it's not the final budget, but you need some kind of idea of how much you want to spend here. When you remember, maybe you've already taken part in one of our webinars about the strategy development. There we always say how important it is to know where you want to go, to know your financial needs, because if you don't know your financial needs for the next 3 to 5 years, then you can't do proper donor research. You don't know how to develop a strategy for that, because your strategy will look completely different if you need $10,000 or if you need $1 million. So that's why including a budget in project plans is also important, because you need to know kind of where you're going. You need to know the direction, no? This doesn't need to be the final perfect budget, but you need a ballpark figure. You kind of need to know where you're looking. Again, if you're looking for 10 or if you're looking for $1 million, because that's going to look very different. So more detailed about the parts, the sections, the things I showed you before were the topics that need to be included. Now, the main sections that you should have in a project plan that you need to cover is, why is the project necessary? So what is the basic issue here? What will be the impact? What will be the change that will happen when you do the project? Very important as well to understand the kind of logic, the impact logic behind it. because then you can also really tailor your activities and your strategies towards what you want to achieve. Then you talk about what is your plan, and you have to see the difference between what will be the impact and what will be the plan. We will talk about that in a minute, because that is something that many people confuse, the impact and the plan. And then you also have a section about who are you and what do you have to offer. And this shouldn't be confused with the organizational profile, which many people include here. That is not enough. In this section, you should really specifically talk about your background connected to that project. So it doesn't matter if you've implemented many projects, but in different areas. It doesn't really matter your registration number. It doesn't matter necessarily when you were formed, if that's not showing experience, etc. But what do you have to offer to be able to implement that project? That is something that you want to show here. You want to show it to your internal audience, or you want to just be clear about it so that you can then later use it to talk to a donor, etc. So this is crucial here to include that connected to the project that you're talking about. To start with the project plan, you think about where you already are. What kind of information do you already have? What do you know about the situation? What obviously, if you want to work in a specific field, if you have identified an issue that you want to solve, you already know stuff about that. You know why that issue is an issue. Maybe you already have worked in the field, so maybe you already have background data that you can use, a baseline study, stuff like that. So write that down, all the information that you already have about the project and the background knowledge that you have. But then you will also realize that there's a couple of points that you're very clear on, a couple of points that you're maybe not clear on. And we will look at the problem tree in the next one of the next slides. You will see you have to identify a core issue, and then results of the issue and the reasons for the issue. And to be able to do that, you really have to understand the entire field. So what is already clear, what is not clear? Maybe you have to do some research, maybe you have to dig a bit deeper to find out where you're not clear yet. Then you think about stakeholders. So who are stakeholders that are important? Who are people you want to work with, participants, but also who are other players that have a say, government structures, organizations, schools, NGOs in the area, etc. Who are other stakeholders? Who's already involved in, here it says in the project, but if you haven't started the project yet, which you shouldn't because it's difficult to get funding for existing projects, then you have to think about who's already kind of involved in the issue that you want to solve. Anything that already happened. Maybe it's a follow-up project, maybe somebody else tried something, why did that not work, etc. What already happened in the past, and which strengths and weaknesses should be considered. So which strengths of your potential approach or weaknesses, some maybe there's a danger of political change, etc. Just think of all the background stuff that is going to inform the way that your project can be implemented. Try to write that down, try to make a list and get a good overview of all the factors that can influence your project or your planned project. So when you write this section about why the project is necessary, you should cover basically these questions. So what is the problem? Naming the problem. Again, when we look at the problem tree, you will see that that is the centerpiece. What is the problem? And you would be surprised how difficult it sometimes can be to identify the problem. I remember when in a workshop that I was in, we were tasked with the same thing. And we were like, it was a room full of development professionals. We all work in fundraising 10+ years. And they gave us a very simple task. And they said, okay, we want to develop a project for kids to learn swimming. Because, I mean, this is a specific situation, but in Germany, usually kids go to swimming classes when they are 6 years old, but due to COVID, all pools were closed for 2 years. So now we have this huge backup of kids that can't swim. with two years, kind of two cohorts of kids never learned swimming. So that is an issue because kids can die in accidents. It's a good form of movement. It's good to learn coordination, etc. So they told us, okay, the project is giving kids access to swimming classes. What is the problem? And we discussed for 1 hour, because what is the problem? Is the problem that kids can't swim? Or is the problem that kids die in accidents? Or is the problem that kids don't get enough exercise? Or is the problem that pools are closed? It's sometimes very difficult to really define the major problem that you want to work on. You think you know, but if you really put yourself to it, sometimes it's difficult to pin down exactly the problem that you work on. And you can even go further and think on 2 levels, like what is the problem on the individual's level that I'm working on? What is the problem on the society level that I'm working on? So then we could say on the individual's level, the problem is kids can't swim. And on the society level, the problem is kids die in accidents. Or maybe kids don't get enough exercise. You see, it's not that easy. It's a challenge, but it's a good challenge to put yourself through because it makes you so much sharper on your project. And in the end, again, we're talking about the project plan right now, but in the end, donors want to see projects that are really sharp on the impact side, that are super clear in their impact logic. And forcing yourself to thinking these things through is going to sharpen your perspective. So that is going to be helpful in the long run for the proposal as well. So what is the problem? Again, sounds like the simplest question of all, but not necessarily is. Then what's your target group? Who do you want to work with? Are you working with children, with women, with farmers, etc.? Who are you working with? Usually that's easier because you know who you want to work with. How did you get the idea for this project? Is more like background information, but can be interesting as well. Can also be a good thing to convince donors later, like a storytelling element that can increase engagement. Then what we said before, who has influence? Who are stakeholders? This is something that in the past often has not been looked at sufficiently and then resulted in problems because it is crucial to know everybody who has a stake. Because they can be really influential and they can maybe hinder project success if they don't like the project. So you really try to understand who are stakeholders in the community, who are people that have a role to play. And then what is the current situation and does anybody already address the issue? And if so, how and why is your approach going to be a bit different maybe? Or that's not the section where you write that, but you already have to think about that. And here you can use data, obviously. The more data you can use, the better. So instead of saying there's many poor kids in this area, you could say 30% live under the poverty line. So try to back up your information here with data, reliable data, obviously. Sometimes you can't find that. Sometimes you need, you can use data from your own background study. It depends a lot, but try to back up your claims here with data because that always makes it stronger. And then you also have to discuss about the effects of the problem and try to be very clear about what are the reasons or the causes of the problem, what is the problem, and what are the effects of the problem, because that gives you a very clear logic of things that you have to address. We will look at that and we look at the problem tree because that will help you to make the difference here. So those kind of are the things that you have to cover when you talk about why the project is necessary. So here's the problem tree that I kept talking about. And this is a great method to plan projects that is really, really helpful. So you can think of it as a tree where you put the main problem, you start with the main problem in the middle on the trunk section. Again, it's not always that easy to define the main problem, and it might need some discussion. It might need some time to figure out what the actual main problem is. So, for example, we chose in the end, we said, okay, the main problem is that kids can't swim. So to make it very simple, but you can also put it on different levels. You could also say the main problem is that kids die in accidents, obviously. But it depends a little bit on where you want to put that ladder. Then the roots, the bottom, that's where the causes go. So why does the problem exist? So in that example with kids swimming, is pools were closed. There's not enough teachers. There is Corona. That's why the pools were closed. No, so you kind of you can develop small chains of causes of the problem, and you can kind of level them. You will see another example on the next slide that is a bit more complicated, to show all the connections. So if you have lined out all the causes that might need some research, no, you should really put your head to it. What are all the causes of the problem, the main problem that I want to solve? Then you go to the branches, to the top of the tree. What are the consequences of that problem? So if we say the main problem is kids can't swim, then the consequence is kids die in accidents. Another consequence is kids don't get exercise. Kids get more chubby, health issues, maybe just overblowing this issue, because obviously that's not the only reason, but that can be one reason. We could also say another consequence could be kids don't get social interaction as much as they had before because they don't go to swimming classes, so they can get problems higher up, no, when they go to school later on, etc. So all of that would be consequences of the main problem. And on the next slide, I'll show you a little bit more sophisticated example. You can't read all of this very clearly. I realized just now that it's not clear, so I'm very sorry for that. But here you can see a much more sophisticated problem tree. And here, the issue that they want to work on is small businesses, no, and the financial situation of small businesses. So the problem on the level of the target group, again, this is divided in those two levels that I was talking about. Problem on the level of the target group is small business owners generate low revenues. On the societal level, which is the next one, is weak economic strength of the targeted district. And then you have all the reasons, or the reasons why that happened, and then the effects of the issue on the top. And here you can see there's kind of chains of this. No, it's different levels. Here on the bottom, you start with a low level of education, leads to financial illiteracy, leads to small business owners do not have adequate bookkeeping skills, leads to low profit margins, leads to the problem. Small business owners generate low revenues. Another reason for low profit is no separation between business and private finances. Again, that leads to low profits, that leads to low revenues. So you see that can be much more complicated and much more layered. And it takes time to develop this. You can develop this in a team with like Post-its or on a whiteboard, etc. And it's very, very interesting to discuss the project that you're planning in this way, because it gives you very different perspectives, and it will make your project sharper. It will make it more clear. And it will also show you where you might have shortfalls. Maybe you're not so clear about all the reasons why the problem is a problem. And then again, you have to look into that, because if you don't fully understand the issue you want to solve, you cannot solve it. And later that will give your proposal so much more strength. Once you have the problem tree, you put that into a solutions tree, which is basically the other way around. If you put all those negatives that you have in the problem tree into positive language. So if we stay with this same thing here, if we have high quality school education, that leads to financial literacy, that leads to small business owners having adequate bookkeeping skills, leads to larger profit margins, leads to significantly higher revenues. If business and private finances are kept separate, that leads to larger profit margins, leads to higher revenues. And again, if we look at the top, the same things also have effects, no? If the strength of the targeted district is increased, young people stay in the area, social structures are strengthened. Again, you go through the same, these are closely connected, no? This is the same issues that you have in the problem tree, but phrased positively. And here you can see, when you talk about your project, usually if you're not if the problem is not super small, or you're not proposing a huge program, you would choose just one or two of these branches that you want to work with in your project. So here in this example, it's the ones that are lined in green. So they have decided that they want to work in training opportunities and are offered and used. And that will lead to all these things that are lined in green. And that will then finally lead to increased revenues on the level of the target group and increased economic strength on the level of society. So if you do it this way, but you still cover everything, but then you choose strategically what you want to do with your project, you already have your impact logic kind of lined out, and it's going to be very, very, very helpful because it clears the difference between an activity and an impact later for you, because that is where a lot of confusion happens. So this is just a quick intro into this methodology. It's really helpful to plan projects. If you are all interested, we can do another webinar just on the problem tree, if that is something you would like. If so, then please write in the chat and let us know if that's interesting for you. Maybe we could also even make a workshop out of this with some group activities, because I think this is super useful to plan successful projects. What's the difference between a project and a proposal? Now going back to this, we will see that you covered a lot of the sections that are super helpful for the proposal. And maybe you might think, oh, well, it's the same, because in the proposal, you also have to tell them, like, why is the project necessary? What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? You need to include a budget, timeline, etc. But what is the difference? As I said, the difference basically is that a proposal, there's other differences as well, but the proposal is mainly geared towards one donor. So you figure out what that specific donor wants to see, how they want you to approach the issue, and then you write for that. A project plan is just 100% written for the project that you want to implement. I always put it that way. If you think of a project plan like a diamond, no? It has like some what is that called? Like some sides. So you look at the project plan like this, but you can look at one angle and it looks different. You can look at a different angle, it looks different. You can look at this angle, it looks different. And that's a project plan is perfect the way it is. But if you looking for a donor, you would need to find out what the donor wants to see, the angle, no? So if you have let's stay with the swimming issue, no? Let's say we propose a project that addresses this, gives swimming lessons to kids. That's our project plan. But then how can we fund that? Okay, we could go different directions. We can look at it from this way and we say, okay, we approach donors that fund health issues, because it's a health issue as well. We saw that in the effects, no? Kids are more unhealthy if they don't get movement. Okay, health issue, health donor, perfect. Then we can also go like the kids lane, just basically kids, no? Kids should have fun, right? Different kind of donor. We move the project, we adjust it for the proposal, project stays the same, but we take a different angle. But then we can also go from the sports angle, because if kids don't learn swimming, they will also not go into like professional swimming later. So it could also be very interesting for a donor that is interested in sports, in physical movement. So again, we turn the project plan a little bit more around, look from the different angle, adjust it in the proposal and apply there. We don't have to change the plan for that. We just have to change the angle we look at. But if we start with the health proposal, it's going to be so difficult for us to think of the sports avenue, because we're already in that health lane, no? I hope I'm making myself clear, but it gives you so many more options if you first have a good project plan that you can then look at from different angles, no? But there's a couple of other differences as well between a project plan and a proposal that are very clear, which is the first one is the audience, no? Because the project plan usually is for an internal audience, while the proposal is for an external audience. And that also determines what parts you should focus on most, because we said, yes, it's very, very important to describe in detail how why you want to do something, But in the project plan, you can also focus a bit more on how you want to do it, because it's for your internal audience. The people you work with need to know how the project is supposed to run. No? What are the things that you are supposed to cover? What are things that are interesting? What are the tasks that everybody has to do? When you talk to an external audience, the issue of why is this so important is even more crucial, because they might not understand that clearly. You probably already have a lot of background knowledge about the issue. So you've been working with it, you know the target group, etc. But an external donor might not. So I always say, if you want to, if you're writing a proposal, really focus on that relevance part. Why is the issue an issue, and how is that relevant to that donor? Because if they don't get that, then they will not keep reading. If they don't understand, even if your activities are perfectly planned out and all looks nice, if you are not convincing them that the issue you want to solve is an issue, then they will not give you any funding. No? And one example for that is that always sticks in my mind is, for example, I was applying for money to, I was working in an agroforestry project in Nepal, and we always applied for funding, obviously, to also support farmers in planting grass. So we to planting grasses close to the house, because that made it easier for them to collect grasses for the goats and the buffalo, etc. They didn't have to walk that far. And the specific issue here was that in Nepal, in rural areas, mostly girls were responsible for collecting that fodder for the animals. And so in dry season, they had to walk very far to get grass. So sometimes they were walking for an hour or even longer. So they couldn't go to school because they were busy all day collecting fodder. So I applied for a grant with an NGO that was supporting girls' education for fodder plants. And obviously, if I didn't explain very properly what the connection between planting grass and girls going to school is, they would have not understood that. They would have thought that I was applying with the wrong donor. So that's an example where it's so important to really focus on that why, to explain all those connections, all the things that we lined out in the problem tree properly to a donor as well. Because if they don't see that, then it doesn't matter if my activities, like, oh, she chose the perfect grass, she chose the good trainer, she chose all good activities. But if they don't understand why they should be planting grass, then they're not going to fund a project like that. So that's why you have to focus so much on that why question when you talk to donors. And again, while yes, you have to line out everything in your concept, in your project plan as well, in presenting it, maybe you don't have to put that focus on that part so much, because you'll be talking to an internal audience of your peers who probably already know that. And then the purpose. So the project plan helps you to implement a project, to plan a project, and to maybe develop a work plan, to understand who needs to do what, to develop the tasks, just develop the logic of the project, basically. And the proposal is the basis for a funding decision by the donor. So again, it focuses on different aspects. Again, the why is going to be more important. Maybe the number of beneficiaries of project participants, the cost, etc. All of that is going to be much more important than in the project plan, where you really should also put a focus on the how. What are the activities exactly? What are the strategies? What are the steps that you have to do? It's going to be a bit more practical, probably. Who needs to do what? Who has which responsibility? Focusing on those elements of a document much more. So the purpose of writing a project plan versus writing a proposal is very different. Then probably the tone, but that depends on the donor as well. Obviously, both are formal documents where you shouldn't use like colloquial language or any slang terms or anything like that. Obviously not. Both are formal documents that should be in good writing. But maybe a project plan could be a bit more technical because it will focus on the activities. It will focus on like giving a roadmap for the project for your participants. No, so it can be more technical. A good proposal, but again, that depends on the donor. If you're applying with the European Commission, then don't put any emotion in there, to just stay to the technical side. But if you're applying with a foundation, maybe a smaller foundation that didn't have an open call, but that just wanted you to send something, you have to think about this. Good proposals inspire emotion and are more than just a collection of facts, no? Because in a project plan, you're just presenting what you want to do. You don't necessarily have to convince anybody. It's just a plan of the things you want to do. With a proposal, you have to convince the donor to support you. So ideally, you would inspire some kind of emotion, ideally positive emotion, not negative emotion. So not saying, oh, these people are so poor, please help, but look what you can change, look the positive change you can help us to achieve, something like that. And obviously, again, it's not too much emotion. It needs to be based on facts, etc. But it needs to be a bit more than just a collection of facts and just like a combination of factual statements. You can tell some stories. You can put in elements of storytelling if you have the space for that, if you have the format for that. If there's guidelines and they tell you different, then just follow the guidelines like always. But if you have wiggle room, it's an option to maybe include some little case studies, include some additional information that is colorful, that can inspire some kind of emotion, some kind of positive feelings about this. And then the last thing that is probably going to be a bit different that I've talked about before is the message, which is the how versus the why. In the project plan, while you also have to really develop this logic of why and how the things work, you should explain exactly how you want to implement the project. So it needs to be logical, no? It needs to, the activities need to be logically lined out. You need to explain the strategies. Obviously, again, the background, the problem tree, the root causes, the effects, etc. You need to line all of that out, but it can be more factual and then focused on how you want to actually implement this project. The proposal can focus a bit more on the why of the issue. Again, focus a little bit more on explaining exactly the logic of the problem tree, because the donor needs to understand your why. They need to be 100% sure why this issue needs solving. So you could even include stuff like what will happen if you don't solve the issue, what could be consequences if nothing gets done, etc., so that they really understand the relevance of your project for their work. It always with the connection to their work, obviously, no? So the message can be a bit different. In both documents, you have to cover all those things, but the focus can be laid a bit differently, also always depending on the donor. And now, how does a project plan help you with the proposal? I think I've mentioned most of those things. It has a very similar structure. You have to cover the same topics. It has a very similar information. Most of the information that you have collected to write a good project plan, you can then use for writing the proposal as well. Sometimes you can copy a snippet. Sometimes you just have to adjust the language a bit to reflect words the donor wants to use, etc. So it has the same information and will really help you with that. It's a great basis for a good proposal because, yeah, it covers the same topics and you can work from there. And it will also make sure, if you work from one project plan and develop different proposals from those different angles that we talked about, it will make sure that you're always still talking about the same project. If you always write new proposals, then sometimes the project changes in your mind, and that can be tricky. And you also exactly know what you need, because if you've already lined out a basic budget, it will inform your donor research. You will know if you're looking for a donor that can offer you 10,000 or can offer you 100,000, etc. You know what you're looking for. You know what kind of cost you need funding for, because that's a big difference as well. Some donors will not fund construction projects. Some donors will not fund personnel cost, etc. So knowing what you're looking for will really help your donor research process and then your proposal writing. So all of that kind of feeds into the proposal and is super helpful for that. Okay, with that, I'm already coming to the end of the presentation, and we still have 10 minutes left for questions. I'm just want to present to you something real quick. If you want to learn more about the project plan and how you can use it, we have a full online course about that that we recorded. You can take in your own time. It covers questions that you need to answer in a project plan, how you can use it, etc. But everything in more detail with further resources. And usually we sell this at $50. But today, as a special offer, we want to offer it to you for $25. It's a full online course. It's a really good deal, 50% off. So if you want to do that, you can use the coupon code webinar 2023 to get those 50% off. And I'm sure my team is sharing the link, and yeah, it's already there. The link is already in the comments, but you will also get a follow-up email with a link to that offer. We have many, many other online courses that you can check out on philanthropia.org. Different topics. It's about proposal writing, fundraising strategy, but also very specific ones like European Commission funding or funding from US aid, if that is interesting for you. So please check out what we have to offer on philanthropia.org. And because you joined today, we also want to offer you another coupon code for all the other courses of 35% off, which is if you use the coupon code fundraise, you will get 35% off of any of the courses on the website. So I hope you find something useful for you, and maybe we'll see you in the course again. We also have another offer, which is the donor database. You can find it at donordatabase.org. It's a tool that helps you to find donors, potential donors for your causes. You can search more than 5,000 donors there, and you can try it for 1 week free. So if you want to just look what it does for you, you can sign up. It's free for 1 week, and after that, it's a very decent price as well. I think, not 100% sure. I think maybe 99 per year. I'm not sure. I don't. Yeah, don't force me to say anything here. I'm not sure, but you will see it. And it's the first week is always free. So you can just check for yourself. Thank you so much. Again, please don't forget to check the rest of the program at philanthropia.org. And there's one more date that I'm supposed to tell you about, which is, oops, not this. Sorry, So we have another expert Q&A session with me and my colleague Eric lined up on the 26th of May. So maybe already put that into your calendar, 26th of May. That's a Friday. So you would have the opportunity to ask us any questions related to fundraising, to resource mobilization, and it's going to be me and my colleague Eric. Okay, so we still have 10 minutes for questions. So I'm going to look into the Q&A section and go through as many as I can. I also have one thing to ask of you, because we are changing our homepage a bit and always looking for recommendations. So if you've taken part in the webinars a couple of times already, maybe you've made good experiences, maybe you've used some of the knowledge that we share here and put it to work and it actually did something for you. Maybe you won a small grant, or maybe you were able to make some connections with donors, etc. We would love to hear from you. So in that case, please send us an email to info@philanthropia.org. It would be amazing if you could give us some feedback on the webinars, the online courses, the resources that we share. We try to share as much as we can for free. So it would be great to hear back from you if you like our offering, if you were able to put any of that to use, and if it actually did something good for you. If you won a grant after taking part in these webinars and learning something, I would love to hear it. So please send us an email to info@philanthropia.org if that's the case. Thank you very much. So going through the question, the first one is Is a project plan similar to a strategic plan? Not really. I would say a strategic plan is more about the overall strategy, what you want to do, what the theory of changes that you want to kind of follow, things that you want to implement. It also includes a timeline. It also includes some kind of a budget, etc. But it's more on the level of the entire organization. The project plan is really just specifically for one project. Even if you just run one project in your organization, I would still say it's a difference, because the strategic plan would always talk about what your entire organization, the strategy for the entire organization. I think the next question is, do we have indicators in the project plan? Indicators I wouldn't include in a project plan yet. That's when you think about the intervention logic later, the log frame, etc. That will be a next step. You can already think about indicators, obviously, especially when you collect data, but you don't have to include them in the project plan yet. Then there's a question, who will be the appropriate funding agencies for NGOs? It's a question we always get. I recommend you take part in one of our webinars about donor research. We talk a lot about that. We also have a free online course, a free online course that is called How to Find 50 Donors in 10 Minutes. So there we share a lot of ideas on how to find donors really quickly, in many donors in 50 minutes. So I'm just sorry, one question in the box here. If there's any issues with pricing, etc., then you can always send an email to info@philanthropia.org as well. You have to put in, if you just click on the courses now, you have to put on purchase, I think, and then you can put in the coupon code. So for the 50% offer, the coupon code was fundraise 2023 for the project plan course. For everything else, the coupon code is fundraise, and then you get 35% off. So you still have to write in the coupon code. It's not automatic. So if you go just to the homepage, you will see the usual price. And then when you go to purchase, I think you put in the coupon code, and then you will see the discount. Okay. Next question is, what's your comment on the needs assessment as a base of successful proposal writing versus project planning? Needs assessment should always be the first step. Even if you develop a project plan, first you should do a needs assessment to kind of even figure out what the issue is that you want to solve. If you have the resources for that, ideally you should always do that to find out what the actual issues are, no? Because otherwise sometimes we go in and assume that something is a problem when it actually isn't a problem, or we overlook a problem that we don't see that actually is one. So it's always the very first step, and oftentimes the needs assessment will also give you information to fill out the problem tree and to supplement that with further important information. And there's another question about linking up with donors. Again, I recommend you check our YouTube channel, where we have tons of webinars that we've done in the past, and one is always about donor networking, where we specifically talk about how you can network with donors. There's also, if you want even more information, we have an online course about networking with donors that you can check out. It has like samples for cold emails, etc. Gives you a lot of information on ways that you can connect with donors there. Okay, there's questions about the problem tree. Maybe I ran through that too quickly. So we will take that up and do another webinar about the problem tree, because I think that is a great tool that many of you can use to develop projects. Maybe we'll make a workshop out of that. We will let you know. So just make sure you follow us on social media, either on Facebook or sign up for our newsletter. I think I think most of you are signed up to the newsletter, otherwise you wouldn't be here today, but still make sure that you receive the newsletter and check it frequently, because we will be sharing information about our next webinars and our next seminars there. And there's a comment. I always felt that zoning down to the actual root causes can be very difficult when working on the problem tree. What are some of the secrets? Well, yeah, it is very difficult. I think one great way is to discuss that in a team. Take enough time. Don't like a proper problem tree can take a day to develop. It looks so easy. It looks like not that easy. Make it a team effort, and take time. Also, if you have an office with many people, what many do, also some of my clients do, is to put up like a big whiteboard with the problem tree on it, with stickers or like to pinned papers, and leave it there, leave it at the office, and then you look at it all the time, and then sometimes you come up with new stuff because you think about it all the time if you see it there, no? If it's always there. So, and then reading a lot, like background literature, looking at other projects, etc., that will also help you to kind of get to those causes, no? The difference between a project plan and a concept note. Concept note is basically a document. It's a very condensed form of presenting a project, but also focusing on the why a lot, because it's used to reach out to the donor first time. A concept note is more similar to a proposal than a project plan, because it's the external audience. It's something for a donor, but very, very short, mainly to spark interest, focused more on the why. Also about that, we do have webinars and courses, so you can check that out also through the YouTube channel if that's of interest. Can you explain what you mean by external audience? That's, I mean, the donor, basically someone outside of your organization instead of your staff or your colleagues or your board. Internal audience, I mean, like people that work in your organization. External could be participants, could be other stakeholders, and in this case, I meant donors as an external audience. In the proposal, we add numbers and studies. Is it the same for the plan? Yes, definitely. That's what I meant. By collecting information, you already do that work, so then you can use it in the proposal and keep going from there. And there's a question about the logical framework model and a template. I think those are things we are working on that. We will be sharing stuff in the next webinars, because that's very practical. We also do have a course with templates for a logical framework, if that's interesting for you, so you can check it out. But just stay tuned for the next webinars, because those will be topics that we will address in the future. Yeah, the project plan definitely is closely connected to the logical framework. Is there a website where we can read project proposals and project plans? You can check proposals4ngos.com. We don't have project plans there, but we have a couple of project proposal samples that you can check and read for yourself if you're interested. That's on proposals4ngos.com. What comes first, project plan or proposal? Project plan, if you can, because then you can base your proposals on it. Okay, budget writing, yes, that's a good topic. We will also be addressing that in the future. There's no certificate for this course because it's an online webinar. If we would give out certificates, we wouldn't be doing anything else anymore. But if you take one of our online courses on the platform, you will get a certification. How to pay for the course? If you are in Nepal, which I think it looks like, you can contact our office. It's info@philanthropia.org, because we do have an office in Kathmandu. So you can figure something out with them. And if you're in any other countries having issues, you can also reach out to info@philanthropia.org, and sometimes we can find a way to figure this issue out. I know that it is an issue. Unfortunately, international payments always is a challenge. But if you're in Nepal, it's easy because we have an office in Kathmandu, and there's an easy way to figure that out. We will share further links and the recording through your email, the one you used to sign up. So you will get a copy of this as well. There's so many more questions, but I don't have time to go through all of them. But many of them I could just refer to some of the webinars that we have recorded. So check the YouTube channel, because we have another webinar about the sustainability plan. Risk management is covered in that as well a bit. And I think if you check out the stuff we already have, and everything on the YouTube channel obviously is for free. We also have full courses on these issues that are always more detailed and have some downloadables with it, etc. That would be on philanthropia.org. So please check out all of that. And yeah, with that, I think we will end for today. Thank you so much for taking part in this webinar. Again, if you have feedback, if you want to share something with us, please do so at info@philanthropia.org. We'd love to hear from you, especially if you had successes with the knowledge that we keep sharing here. And I hope to see you on the 26th of May in the Q&A session. We will have much more time for questions. Then we don't have any presentation part. We'll just be taking questions from the audience. So please make sure to join us on that day as well. And I see you again in May. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.